What's actually Web3? If you look on the top, the things that I've colored, right? So that's the playbook of any SaaS application right now. Anything Web2 will be like this. You will have a front end where you will have some like static JavaScript, HTML, and all these things that will speak to a backend, which will have a logic and all these things, which will store the state in some kind of DB. If it is a very small application, DB can be MySQL, whatever it is, and backend can be as simple as PHP or whatever it is. And then the front end can be plain HTML with JavaScript, whatever it is. And if it's like a complex application, like let's say Gmail or whatever it is, so you still have a front end, you will still have a back end, but you will have like plethora of servers which will split the work and do it. And then you will still have a DB, or I would call it data store than DB, because you just store there. DB has some baggage associated with it. And like this, all these things, when I say DB of like big things, they are actually NoSQL DBs. So they don't usually don't call DBs for NoSQL. They are data stores. So they have some kind of like internal clustering and things like that. Now in Gen 1, the actual this thing looked like this. Like you will have front end here. In actually the bottom is first generation of front ends of like Web3. Instead of apps, we call it dApps, right? Decentralized applications. Now, what do they decentralize? They still have a similar front end, right? And most of them, they still have some non-important logic which can be centralized to do in the backend. This is optional, and they store in some traditional DB related stuff. What they use blockchain for is to store something which they want to actually decentralize, or like this is optional. So there you'll only find a front end, and you will find that the actually front end has a JavaScript that will speak with the blockchain and get information like, hey, let's say if actually the front end is actually a wallet, I mean, it will not have any other stuff here. It will just have this line here. It will speak to the blockchain and will actually get your balance and will show the balance here. And if you want to create a new wallet, it will create a new wallet. If you want to send a transaction, you will do something and then you will actually call the blockchain. The blockchain will actually propagate the transaction across to the network. And then you will get back the confirmation from the blockchain that your transaction is either successful or not successful, and you will show in the front end. This is a simple front end. But if you want to build a complex application like where you want to store things, people are still using the traditional backend along with blockchain, to store things that are not really need to be decentralized, right? Like let's say if it has like let's say identity, right? So identity is one thing that people still use username, passwords. Let's say you want to actually store that in some DB and only then allow this access to blockchain. The people are doing all these things in Gen 1.